just got a text message from Eve's teacher, and she said that Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? This happens quite often when you're raising children, because I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch, and it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with a lunch. But I responded and just said Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry, and hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
Court documents show Ruby Franke from the Family Channel 8 Passengers has been arrested after her child climbed out of a window and asked a neighbor for food and water. Officers say there were signs that he had been tied up. The child was taken to a hospital, and his siblings are now in DCFS care. Franke is being held without bail.
Their kiddo escaped from a window, ran to the neighbor's house, asking for food and water. Food and water, two necessities that everybody needs in order to survive. You see, Ruby believes in distortion, strict, no outside influences, period, because that brings in distortion into the home, and that distortion has a permanent effect on your kids.
We're here to tell you you're not crazy.
No.
And we can help.
Yes. I've never met someone who's crazy, actually. What it is that they're in distortion. And usually the people who are around you are in distortion. That's a new term. You probably have not heard that before. And we're going to be explaining that in subsequent videos.
What you're looking at here is the official post for Ruby Franke and her business partner, Jody Hildebrand. And both these two individuals have been arrested for, well, you can read on the screen the definition. For those of you who don't know, Ruby Franke and her business partner Jody had a YouTube channel called Connections, along with a website designated for parents to sign up for these types of classes so that they could teach children the quote-unquote truth. Ruby and her husband simultaneously documented, filmed every part of their lives of their 6 kids throughout the years since 2015 when their YouTube channel started. They go by the channel 8 Passengers, and they have been in a flurry of controversy to where they've actually shifted content over the years because of how much backlash that Ruby would receive based upon the treatment of her children in YouTube videos. Now, I don't know if you guys remember Daddy of 5 situation that happened years ago on YouTube, but it turned into a really big thing. Parents were basically mistreating their children on camera, and it was getting hundreds upon thousands of views, and it was bringing in revenue. It was overall a really horrible situation, but it took the internet to actually get notice on what was ongoing. And it just so happens is that it was actually Sherry, Ruby's oldest daughter, who's now in college, who's been working behind the scenes to get CPS and to get those children out of the home because of what was ongoing. Her daughter, who escaped the family and doesn't talk to them anymore, says, "Hi all, today has been a big day. Me and my family are so glad justice is being served. We've been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decide to step up. The kids are safe, but there's a long road ahead. Please keep them in your prayers and also respect their privacy." You know, that's exactly what I'm going to do here, because there's a lot of videos out on YouTube of Ruby just treating them terribly. I'm not even going to include it because I would have to blur it, because I don't want to put that out anymore out on the internet than it already is. But what we are going to do is we're going to dive into one of the specific videos that Ruby made giving parenting advice, so you can get a full understanding of who Ruby is just from this video alone. Okay, we're not going to put any of her family vlogs of her kids and her shaming or bashing or making fun of them or humiliating them on camera. Just a pure advice video from Ruby herself. Let's dive into this. Welcome to the brand new sponsor of the channel today, Fume. If you have some bad habits, this is going to be the way that you break them. What you're looking at here is Fume, a no electronic device, and instead of vapor, this uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious natural flavors. Fume becomes loaded with an adjustable airflow tip with a simple little twist. Also, if you're a fan of fidgeting around, do you hear that? I could do this all day long. It makes it super seamless. It has this nice little clicking thing when you adjust the airflow dial. This easy to use magnetic device, you just pull out, voila, there you go. And this little guy has all the flavor that you can possibly imagine. But the best part of all is that not only do these taste great, there's absolutely no vapor, but you get an absolute amount of delicious flavors, including orange vanilla, crisp mint, raspberry lemon, sparkling grapefruit, maple pepper, and my personal favorite, white cranberry, with this little tutorial on how to do this. It's just a slide in, click, and twist for something that is vaporless. This little device is made with genuine craftsmanship. Fume has served over 100,000 customers. If you have any destructive habits, try it out today. And go to tryfume.com/Repzion or scan the QR code right up here. Use code Repzion and you're gonna get 10% off. I'm telling you right now, this is the most unique little device I've ever used. Improve your life today and try something that can eliminate habits that you may be struggling with. Before we dive into this terrible video, Ruby Franke actually had her neighbors speak out after they witnessed her getting arrested. And boy, do all your surrounding neighbors, if they're all saying the same thing, you think that CPS, you think the police would have listened way sooner to avoid all of this stuff that had been happening. Neighbors said Franke would insert herself into other neighbors' lives. One neighbor cited an instance in which Franke gave a sermon-like lecture over what she called inappropriate posters of a woman posing in shorts that were displayed in a garage. So to put this in perspective, she went to a neighbor's house, was complaining about what material the father, or who knows, woman, wife, had of a poster that was in their garage. That's not Karen-esque, I'm not sure what quite is. But the neighbors also accused Franke specifically of withholding food. Okay, and now I can't wrap my hand around this type of punishment for anyone. Neighbors also claim that at the point the husband was kicked out of the home, and Franke would just leave her children unattended in the home for hours and sometimes days at a time. One neighbor in particular recalled how she would often leave her daughter unattended at 10 years old, dude. 10. And the kid would wander around the neighborhood. And this is what's so heartbreaking. Eve, the youngest, would look for companions in the community, the neighbor said. The neighbor said it did not seem like she was attending school. Eve would just knock on the door and ask, hey, can your kids come out to play? And we're like, well, they're at school. They won't be home for another 3 to 4 hours. And the kid would be like, well, I'll just wait. Imagine failing children so hard that you won't even enroll them in school, private school, Christian school, and they're so desperate to just have a singular friend that you're destroying your child's social development.
How many of you parents are tuned in and really aware of your home? What magazines are on your shelves? Are your children reading?
Oh, trust me, my parents were very in tune in what they brought into the house, so much that it was actually very not productive for my childhood on how restrictive they were towards many different materials that all my friends and peers were being exposed to and just overall were having fun with.
What are they watching on TV and who are they interacting with? These are important questions because parents are responsible for what comes into their home.
I agree with you that it is a parent's responsibility for what they bring into the home. This includes relationships, people specifically. It doesn't have to be certain material. But at the end of the day, there is a thing as a parent as going too far with children. And this is one of those instances.
I know when my children were growing up, some of the book series that I allowed in my home were for selfish reasons because it helped the kids to read, I would justify.
Selfish reasons, you say? Well, your explanation for why it's selfish is pretty garbage. If anything, this just highlights how self-entitled you are as a parent, that you would rather revoke a child's ability to learn and reading is really important. You'd also like to destroy their imagination, their creativity, because a child's mind is filled with imagination, and you just want to take your restrictiveness and crush it.
Or it keeps children entertained and they're funny. What could it hurt? Books like Junie B. Jones or Captain Underwear, Charlie's Bumpers.
Captain Underwear? You mean Captain Underpants, which has been around since the 90s? Shockingly enough, my parents actually did allow that into the home. But I would like to challenge you, Ruby, Frankie. Not sure if you can accomplish it because you're in jail right now, but I would like to challenge you at what problematic thing specifically is in Captain Underpants. What specifically in that reading material for children is so terrible that you can't allow your children to read it? Could you provide me one explanation, something, a highlight for why that book is bad for children to read? I don't think that you can provide a singular reason outside of maybe the artwork. It's a young kid in his underwear, saving people, being a hero.
There were many series that seemed harmless on the outside. However, years down the road, I could not complain when I started to see disconnect and my child speaking exactly as the characters in the books that I was providing for them. So these are really great questions to think about as we go into discussing this mother's regret in what she let into her home. And welcome back to Moms of Truth with Jody and Ruby. I am Ruby Franke, who writes in today, says, "Hello, I've been following Ruby's channel for years, and I'm so glad you made this decision to make this group. My husband and I have beautiful girls, ages 23, 21, 19, 17, and 15. Our youngest, Natalie, has special needs. She's the girl in the profile picture, and she's been into the Disney Descendants since it became a thing 7 years ago. Disney Descendants is a movie. I think they have 4 movies now. Ben and I have embraced her love for it. We got her all of the dolls, understanding she'll never outgrow it due to her disability. She's always been our perfect little angel until about 6 months ago when she came home to me saying that some of her classmates were bullying her. I immediately knew this was untrue, as all of her classrooms that we've enrolled her in are solely for the disabled high schoolers."
First off, what a terrible parent who's submitting this. Your kid comes home and expresses that they're being bullied in school, and your first response is to say that's not true because of the school that we put you in. This is a fundamental problem with parenting, is not believing a child when they're actually trying to open up and express that, hey, I'm experiencing pain or bullying, or I don't know, maybe, they're posting photos of the other kid online inappropriately or some way. High school can be an absolute terrible, barbaric place for children, especially when their peers do horrific things like body shame them or post photos that would be inappropriate for them to be having, or rumor about a certain classmate because they're into a certain, nerd thing that other people think that's stupid. My second point is, why do you seem to think that a disabled high schooler can't be mean and cruel to someone else who's also disabled? Are you under the impression that people who are disabled are so utterly useless that they can't be mean to other disabled people? Because that's the impression that I'm getting here, that's what this person thinks. 2 terrible parents in one video. Wow.
Research on the Descendants movie, thinking there was something in them that I had missed, and was simply shocked. Movies themselves are fine, but it's the cast I'm worried about. There are a lot of disturbing things I found, but I have found that one of the main cast members had taken their own life not even a month before the movie was released. How selfish can you get?
Wow. Wonderful. What a wonderful response. How selfish can you be? I really love the disconnect of parents who don't understand what not aliving yourself, mental health, and the overall struggle with not aliving yourself that people go through, and the automatic label of not aliving yourself as selfish under all circumstances. Can the act itself be selfish? Absolutely. But not every act of not aliving yourself is selfish. And not enough people talk about that conversation. You don't know that cast member's story. You don't know what they were going through. You don't know what they were experiencing. Just label them as selfish, because rather than seek to understand, you seek to judge. And that's exactly what this parent is doing.
So, and then she goes on, "That's about the tamest one I found. What should I do? My husband and my daughters and I have also," this is her words, "gotten into the movies, but I'm worried the actors are bad on Our Sweet Princess. Thanks for all of your advice."
So this mother's first concern is that the actor's bad because they not alive themselves. And even though that their kid doesn't know that the actor did this, somehow his personal life choice of doing that is going to affect you and your family and your kid. How exactly? This is like me never going to the movies to see a film with Tom Cruise in it because Tom Cruise identifies as a Scientologist. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Tom Cruise's interest in Scientology has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with, it's not going to affect the kiddos and what the movie that he's in. It's not going to affect them watching anything. An actor's personal beliefs have absolutely no effect on the film that they're making. So why would this cast member of this Disney film Descendants have any influence on your kid?
Is saying how selfish this cast member was. And she's not seeing the selfishness in herself. So she's quick to blame, and then she's really slow to see where her responsibility in this has been.
Oh, that's rich coming from you, Ruby Franke. You remember when you took your kid's bed away because he played a prank to your other kid going to Disneyland or Disney World, and you took his bed, his physical bed that they sleep on, away? I remember that very, very clearly. Oh, but trust me, it gets a lot worse than that.
So your daughter came to you, this disabled daughter, and I don't know why you're including that she's disabled, other than to, it sounds like there's justification to endorse and get behind her love for Descendants because she's never going to outgrow it. So this is like a family member you've invited into your home, the Descendants. You bought her all the dolls and supported her in loving these characters, knowing these characters would be part of her life for the rest of her life because she'll never outgrow it. That's a big commitment to get behind not doing any research. Let's get behind their kids, and they support their children wholeheartedly until the disconnect starts to show. Anytime you or me or one of our children gets involved in something that has distortion, either a day into it, weeks into it, sometimes years, and it may not even be for decades. However, there will be disconnect that follows. You get into distortion, you involve yourself in distortion, you will see disconnect.
What really annoys me is that she doesn't actually elaborate in regards to this disabled daughter on what the disconnect is. It's almost as if she's trying to predict the outcome of what this kid is going to do and react and be, and the way that they're going to just overall, their character as a person is going to change, their value as a person is going to change. They're going to be a completely different person now because the actor of a film did something that has nothing to do with the movies. Period.
So many parents say, my child is a sweet little angel. I never saw this coming. And then all of a sudden my child's a monster. All of a sudden my child's lying. All of a sudden my child is... And then they have these complaints about the behavioral manifestations of the distortion that was planted long ago.
The distortion that was planted, I challenge you, Ruby Franke. What distortion was planted? The fact that the cast member not alive themselves and somehow that influences the films. How exactly? The character's just not going to appear anymore. Do you know how common it is in films to replace an actor with another actor? Like, they can still be the same character. That's happened within cinema and TV for years. How does one's personal life choices affect the film's influence on your daughter? That's what I want to know. Give me a solid reason other than it just causes disconnect. It causes behavioral problems, which, by the way, this mother in the question submission didn't even give any examples of any problems with their daughter's behavior. In fact, the only highlight is that there was disturbing stuff from the Descendants, and it had to do with a cast member not aliving themselves, and nothing more and nothing less. Like, that's what you come away with. That's the disturbing part. That people struggle, that people go through things.
So the selfishness is you became wholeheartedly involved in your child's decision to embrace and love these characters into her life. And you did zero research on who these people are, what these people stand for, are fine, but it's the cast you have a problem with. The movies are not fine.
Ruby, have you ever been friends with somebody who may have made a bad personal life choice? I'm assuming you're going to call them selfish and you're never going to talk to them ever again, right? Because they made a choice that maybe you don't agree with necessarily. Are you one of those radical people who determine friendships based upon what other people do in their personal life? I mean, there is an extent, right, where you have to draw a line in the sand with certain things that people do. But if mental health is that, well, then you're just a piece of shit at that point.
The movies are full of deception, hiding, stealing, tricking.
Deception, hiding, tricking. What? This is like the class action Christian evangelical who thinks that any outside thing that is not Christian is therefore influencing their children to go down this dark path. What you're describing, Ruby, here is practically every children's book, every single movie designed for children. Pixar, for God's sake. Oh my God, lying? Oh my God, deception? Tricking? You might as well write out every single cartoon show, because some shows actually have really good messages and require these themes to be implemented in order to make an effective message for children. Why is that concept so difficult for you to wrap your mind around? Oh, that's right, because you believe in connections, the overlapping cult mixing in Mormonism. And no, I'm not joking, they're Mormon.
There are many underlying themes of distortion inside the movies. And you're not seeing it. Or if you are seeing it, you're choosing to justify it. Renege on that responsibility, you are being selfish. Anytime someone drops responsibility for themselves, it's selfishness. It's inherently selfish. Well, what does selfishness mean? You know, maybe you're defining selfish different than me. So let me define what selfish is by first defining what selfless is. I love me. It means I care for me. It means I take seriously the words that I say, and I am a man, I am a woman of my word. If I say yes, I mean yes. I'll do that. I will do that.
Man, Ruby Frank, I don't know what the world would do without your solid advice. This is life-changing. I feel so inspired that I'm going to go out and just change my life for the better. When I say yes, I'm going to mean yes. And when I say no, I'm just going to mean no from now on. Thank you for changing my life and my ability to communicate yes and no.
If I make a commitment, I make the commitment with my heart. And I will follow through on that. That is being self-loving. That is being self-loving. That is caring for my soul.
Could I not interject and say that you yourself are the epitome of what selfishness is, because you decide to starve your own kids, and then that's why you were arrested, by not giving them food and water? Is that not selfishness? Is that not harsh punishment? I see it that way. Food and water is the requirement for everybody. You can only go 2-3 days without water, and you can pass away from that. I think that's selfish. I think starving somebody is selfish. Nobody should go hungry, especially your own kids.
I wasn't responsible, or if I can see that I wasn't dishonest, I clean it up as soon as I see. And I am constantly on the lookout for truth, because I'm a truth seeker. That is what being self-loving and selfless means, is you seek for truth. The opposite of that is selfish. I'm seeking for what feels good. And this mom's daughter found something that made her feel good. And so the mom thought, oh, yay, she feels good. I'm going to get behind her and support her, with no thought of, is this responsible? Of effect is this cast going to have on my daughter? Is my daughter worshiping this cast, or is she enjoying it as a movie? And if she's enjoying it as a movie, why isn't any of this distortion bothering her? Probably because it's not bothering me. I need to get really curious why this distortion doesn't bother me, why I'm okay with it as a form of entertainment. Being a parent who is looking out for the best interests of their children means the parent is going to slow down everything that comes into the house and filters it.
Let me tell you that while filtering is something that does need to happen from a parental perspective, I do agree to an extent, the real issue comes down to being overly restrictive to that filtering. There are just certain things that children need to see and be exposed to in order to grow up to being a teenager and an adult. One of the things my own parents did, and I still have a kind of a bitter heart towards, and I make sure my parents always remember what they did to me, is I saved up all my own money and I bought my own original Pokemon deck back in the day. And I had my Pokemon deck, I had my Pokédex, and I had the card game and all those little colorful rocks. I don't remember what they do. I saved up my own allowance to buy this stuff. Now, I loved Pokemon growing up. This is back in the late 90s when Pokemon first blew up. It was national sensation. It was everywhere, right? Every kid was talking about it. My parents, for whatever reason, they were part of the Bill Gothard teaching, the Southern Baptist Evangelical Church, and that specific religion and teaching and sect of religion was very adamant about restricting Pokemon in the home because Pokemon was demonic. That somehow these little creatures had demonic influences on children, and that they needed to be eradicated from the home. So my parents took my hard-earned allowance money when I was a kid and threw it all away, including my original Pokemon games for the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, which now is worth hundreds upon hundreds of dollars, sealed and used copies of these video games. And it destroyed me. That's something that I worked hard for, was just taken from me and destroyed because my parents wanted to filter out demonic influences. That was too extreme. You can go too extreme with filtering, and you as a parent need to be able to distinguish between things that are not okay and things that are okay. Obviously, that's going to be subjective from parent to parent, but there is a point where I think there's like a finger in the sand where like, this is going too far to limit your child's ability to read Captain Underpants because of outside influences / distortion, which causes disconnect with children. I would love to see a case study, a scientific study that says that a child reading Captain Underpants is going to make this kid into some horrible person. Let your kid be a kid. Let them learn to read. Let them have an imagination and creativity. For you to limit that goes to show how terrible of a parent you are, Ruby.
And we make jokes about the screening process. And without giving my opinion on if this is appropriate or not, I want you to look at the principle. I want to point out the principle. The airlines don't want certain things on their airplanes. And so they are screening what comes onto the airplane. Now, you may or may not like that, and I may or may not like that. And that's the principle. If you don't want something in your home, you screen it. And you, the mother, you, the father, have the responsibility of screening what comes in your home.
While I do agree parents have the responsibility to screen what comes in the home, to make a comparison to that of TSA is not equivalent because we're dealing with things that can actually affect the plane itself. Like if you have a certain aerosol, there's certain pressure that when you go up in the sky and when you go low, and those things can explode and cause fires, okay? Whereas screening ultimately comes down to subjectivity, but when it no longer becomes subjectivity is when you're using religion, your teachings from the Mormon cult known as Connections, to restrict children to a point that they can't experience being a kid. And every kid deserves to experience being a kid, having fun, not having responsibilities, or having responsibilities but not being an adult yet, you know? 8-year-olds shouldn't be responsible for buying their own toothpaste or making their own lunch every morning at 7 a.m. like you seem to think that your kid should be.
This mother dropped her responsibility of doing such. And now she's saying, what do I do? Well, now you're in a mess because you have spent, I don't know how long this girl's been into this. 7 years. Oh, 7 years. 7 years. You've been supporting this for 7 years. Disconnect? Now you're seeing the problem?
And you've been starving your own kids since 2015, so I suggest you zip it.
And now you're complaining about the cast members? It was your responsibility to look up and see who these people were. It was your responsibility to look and see what your daughter was consuming. Your daughter is vulnerable. And you just handed over something that she liked. And when you have a child who doesn't discern, all children are learning to discern. And they are relying on the parents to discern. We protect them physically. And if you're not discerning, you are not protecting them emotionally and spiritually.
Now, this goes on for additional 6 minutes, but the key point is that last word, you're not protecting your children spiritually. And that's the kicker right there. She doesn't really talk about her Mormonism or her religion that frequently, but that's what the whole Connections organization is designed for, is bringing in Mormon teaching principles into like a modern age secular teachings that other people who may not be religious can access and use and enforce on their children. The next video that you're about to see is Ruby Franke and her husband with a now deleted video. This is no longer on their social media. It was very difficult to find this, but she's complaining at people arguing with her, disagreeing with the way that she's treating her own kids, because it came out that she does not allow her children, these are teens by the way, to have any social circle of friends, period. No interconnectivity with other kids, no socialization. This is so harmful to a child's social development.
Something Kevin and I have done with our children that is actually working really well.
Really won't get anything for summer. I won't be able to go anywhere. I don't have any friends. No iPads, no TV, nothing.
And now I have no friends.
You can play with friends.
No, like I don't have friends.
I don't have friends either.
I literally...
And they're not anybody's children but mine and Kevin's. And we are doing a really good job of listening to them.
In my experience, I'm gonna be honest, my parents haven't really given me space, and that's been...
Do you want to know the number one most triggering thing Kevin and I have ever talked about? It is not sex, and it is not politics, and it is not religion. If you want to get people really riled up in social media, you start talking about responsibility. It's like the R word. People don't like to hear it. And we are actually training our children to be ready for the real world. We've been accused of not training them for the real world. Actually, we are. And I think...
just because we shield them from distractions, we're being told that we're not preparing them for the real world.
But the worst part of all this, and this is where I'm going to end the video here, okay, is that she sent her oldest boy, teenager, I should say, to a wilderness therapy camp. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what those things are, but they're usually used to send kids, teens. These wilderness centers have a reputation for being horrible on the way that they not only teach these teens to get in line, but there's no bed, there's no fresh food. They're out in the middle of the wilderness, in the middle of nowhere, being yelled at and being mistreated by staff. All the while, they have to dig in the ground to go to the bathroom and then bury it up. Like Boy Scouts, except not Boy Scouts. Imagine being a teen and just wanting to have a friendship with someone, and your parents send you off. They send you away. They upload a video, where's Chad, the oldest son, and they make a whole video explaining why they sent him to this camp, humiliating him, berating him on YouTube. This was in front of thousands of people, guys. Thousands. And I am really of the belief at this point that we need to get YouTube. This is also a YouTube problem. We need to make it so that this child content or family vlogging is no longer a thing. I know that sounds super restrictive, and it kind of is, but I'm in full support of it at this point. Kids should not be put out on YouTube in a vlogging form like 8 Passengers or any family for that matter, unless it's consensual and the child wants to be in it. Because the majority of these kids and young teens, they don't want to be the center of attention in front of a camera. Their parents force them into that. Like, I don't think you guys are fully aware of how many people don't actually want to be the front face of the camera on a YouTube channel as a kid. A kid deserves to have some privacy and not have every aspect of their life blasted online and shown to the world by the parents. by the parents. You know, it'd be one thing if the kids were trying to document the parents doing something crazy or not treating them right, right? But this is the parents documenting the kids. And they exploit that for entertainment, for money, for views, for ad revenue. So that summarizes 8 Passengers. This has been the 8 Passengers files. There's so much more I could have shown, but I don't want to for the sake of the privacy of the kids who don't deserve to have their face blasted on everything without their consent. There's vlogs of you can look up the 8 Passengers, things that shouldn't be on YouTube, and you can see the kids, there are moments the kids don't even want to be on the camera at all. And what does the mom do? She forces it in their face more. It's just, this shouldn't be allowed. This is unethical. It's unprofessional. I think YouTube actually needs to take a stand more against this type of content, but who knows? If you've watched this video all the way through, I just want to say a personal thank you. Right now, if you go over to kick.com/Repzion, kick.com/Repzion, I live stream almost 60 hours every 2 weeks on this platform. I've actually moved platforms. I no longer stream on Twitch, and I've moved to a brand new platform, and I've been streaming and having so much fun over there, and I've been building a community, and I would love to have you guys pop over and join me. We've been playing Baldur's Gate, Dead by Daylight, Call of Duty. I just started on Starfield just the other day. I'm always going to continue to make YouTube videos, but this is my next era of content shifting, is I really enjoy live streaming, and it's been so fun to connect authentically with you guys and just being able to interact live as I'm doing things. And it's not just gaming either. It's do social commentary. We watch YouTube videos. We talk about drama. We do all the things that I would normally do here on this channel. I am a true variety streamer, and I'd love to have you. We're almost at 500 followers, and this month is September. I'm giving away free stuff, including an Elgato face cam. This is fantastic. This is one of the things that I started actually live streaming on just a few years ago. I'm giving away Audio-Technica earbuds. These are $150. These are super high quality, amazing, highly recommend. My sealed copy collector's edition of Wolfenstein: The New Colossus with an actual full life-size doll. Yes, this is still sealed, among a bunch of other stuff that I'm also giving away for September. If you like video games and you like my content, please click the link, kick.com/Repzion. Give me a follow. I'd really appreciate it since we no longer support Twitch. Peace, the rep out.